Hi, and welcome. I'm the Reverend Dr. Cheryl Gaver, Presbyterian minister of 3 congregations in Eastern Ontario, and I'm also the questioning pastor. Our question today is, why do churches keep asking for money? Well, the truth is that any organization, every organization, is going to be asking for money. They have to pay for wherever they're meeting. So for space, or whether it's rented space or whether they've actually built something, they're going to have to pay for that. They're going to have to pay for supplies. Whether if they've got a space, they may need to pay for chairs and tables. They may have to pay for staff, and then they have to pay for programs. They exist to do something, and so they need to raise money to do it. And so often you'll have them maybe charging so much a membership fee once a year, and then asking for special increases. If you have a special program, you want to send the children camping, then they have to raise so much money themselves to contribute towards that. Okay, so that's how a lot of organizations work. Now, for the church, we often ask, we'll have offerings for every week. We'll ask for money, or we'll have that as part of our worship. And maybe that's not the best way to do it. Certainly the pandemic has made us rethink how we do things. And yeah, that's a good challenge. But the fact is that we need money to operate. So then we go, okay, what do we need the money for? I mean, that's a really good question. If there's value in what we do, you need to know. So we have the basic thing. As I said, the building or rented space, the supplies, and the staff. Okay. And if you've got a big building, that probably is big expenses, a lot of hydro, a lot of electricity, heating, water, maintenance, new roof, get rid of the mold. Okay. Some of that with the older buildings is pretty hard. Maybe need new technology, microphones, things like that. Costs money. It'd be great to have it. But where's the money coming from? And you might say, well, the government pays for it. No, it doesn't. Okay. In some countries, it's true. There are state churches and the governments do collect money, and then they will disperse it. And so I think of places like England, the United Kingdom, where they do have state church. So some of your taxes that you pay are going to be used to support the Anglican Church or the Presbyterian Church in Scotland. Other countries might have the same thing. And that's great. But in 1854 in Canada, the government decided they didn't want a state church. Of course, everyone was fighting over who would get this government tax money. And would it be the Anglicans or the Roman Catholics or the Presbyterians, and the government just said, that's it. We're not going to be haggling. This is how much money we've raised, and we're going to split it, 3 ways, 4 ways. And based on what? No, forget it. You guys raise the money for yourself. Canada becomes a country in 1867, but that decision does not change. It's up to the churches to raise the money for themselves. Okay, that means if you're a member of the Presbyterian Church, it's up to you to pay the bills. That also means you have the right to know where the money goes. And so for the Presbyterian Church, and I'm sure for other churches, it's not just your building and salaries and maintenance. Yeah, that's the bare minimum. And sometimes with declining population, that seems to be all that the money goes towards. But we have programs. We have pastoral care stuff. We have projects. The whole reason we exist is not to support the building. We have a building to come together and worship God, but the reason we exist is to do God's work in the world. So that means in the old days, that meant taking care of the sick, looking after the poor, taking care of orphans, providing education. So if you look at the history of many of the schools and hospitals in your area, chances are you're going to find the hospitals were built by church. The schools were built by the church, whatever church. The food banks and social programs were started by church members, okay? We did this. We still do this. So you have many churches where they have an outreach program where they'll provide food, free meals, or close to free meals, once a month, once a week, several times a week, depending on how much money they can get and how many people they can get to help. Because that's the other thing, is if we're going to do some of this work, we need the people to be willing to volunteer to do it. So don't expect churches to put on free meals if no one's willing to help volunteer to serve, to cook the meals, to serve the meals, to clean up, okay? It takes both sides. It's money and people. What does the Bible tell us? The Bible tells us 10%. And it doesn't argue whether it's net or gross. But it's basically, we're here to acknowledge that everything we have comes from God. And we want to return a portion of what we have to God as a way of saying thanks. And we can do that. I have to admit, I don't give 10% to the church, but I give 10% to charity. Because the government has taken over a lot of what the church used to do. So I can support churches that need our money. Hospitals that need our money, or schools, or special programs that, well, the SPCA, started with the church. Couldn't believe it when I found out. But there were initiatives. When we help others in other countries, in the old days, we went in quite arrogantly and sort of told them what help they needed and how we were going to help them. Nowadays, we go in a lot more humbly and we'll say, we see a lot of need here. What do you see and where do you want to prioritize? And it may be building wells for clean water, or providing some training for farmers, or it may be, we've got everything we need, but the kids in the school, they need some equipment. Can you send us some basketballs? That was actually a demand or a request from one school in, I believe it was in Uganda, was, we're okay right now, but we're trying to start a program to help our teens. And we'd like them to learn to play basketball, but we don't have balls. So, yep, the church said, okay, fine. That was an easy request. We can send over basketballs to you. And they finally said, enough balls, we don't need any more. But we're asking, what help do you need? And when you have tragedies, natural disasters, like forest fires and floods, like what's going on in the Ukraine, and all the refugees, we're asking, how can we help? We have programs for starting churches in new communities, for camps. In the Ottawa area, we have Gracefield Camp. And a lot of the churches, they support the Gracefield Camp through the membership in the larger body, because, all us little churches can get together and make a donation that actually affects someone. And then we'll send kids that, they're struggling to go to camp. They don't have enough money. We'll help them out and send them to camp. So there's a lot of things we do with the money. So what can you do? Well, the question is, how important is your church to you? How important is being part of this group that worships God? How important is God to you? Because our donation is an expression of our thanks. And then once you've answered that question, or those questions, then go on. What do you want from the church? How are you going to support it? So you want a wedding, but you don't really support the church otherwise, you're going to end up having to pay for that wedding. Actually, I think we charge for every wedding. If you want funerals, again, you want something special. Okay. What about visiting in the hospitals? What about some counseling? If you're grieving or you're having problems, marital problems, stuff, we'll often provide. We're there to hear, we're there to help. Yeah, we're not professionals. We're not going to charge you for it. But if you think we're giving you value, please support the church. What you really have a right to do, to ask, is where is the money going? Is it actually going to the programs you want to support? A lot of times you can put it your donation, you want it to go to world missions, or you want it to go for a Ukraine relief, or Syrian relief, or Lebanese relief, or the forest fires in BC. That's fine. Anything helps. And we have programs to help in all those emergency situations. So where is the money going? Ask the question. How much is going where? Ask the question. But the money ultimately comes from you. And how important God is to you. So that's the answer for today. Once again, I'm the Reverend Dr. Cheryl Gaver, a Presbyterian minister and questioning pastor. And I just wish you all the best. Take care and see you next time. Bye-bye.